100,000 parents were being trained. 100,000. That's very important. And I applaud that. Because a lot of times, it is the lack of knowledge of what to do. So in your mind, the competition, the relativity of your circumstance, our children is facing that dime a dozen with people who only put their good times. With people who only put the car that them drive, but not the time that it get repossessed. Or the plane that they're on, but not the time where they can't pay them rent. All of that is creating push factors and pull factors into negativity. Our single parent rate is 47%. The global average is 17%. And they made it clear, Senator Scott Matley, that a child with a single parent experience loses the support of approximately 30 people. Senator Brian, if my mom wasn't a part of my life, I would have lost 11 aunts and uncles. Including. No, just Uncle Annie in itself would have changed my life. I would have missed at least 10 very good friends that my mother had. And 55 cousins in support. 55. Most times the noise you hear from me at a conference is the cousins. Now imagine a child losing, in my case, almost 100 people in direct support. Sometimes. But 47%, so Senator Brames are sometimes tired of them too much. Now, because of that reality, then this bill does not facilitate or isn't facilitated by the systems that we have in place. The leader of government business says that unfortunately there is some backlog. At the time that a parent brings a child to say take him, which is normally, is now an emergency. It is an appreciation that me can't manage. A backlog is threatening at that time. Because the parent now may now have to take it in their own hands until the backlog is cleared. Indeed, I wonder how many of them remain interested or is still present, alive or in the space after the backlog clears up. When you reach my case, where am I at this time? In fact, I would have hoped that some indication would be given as to what is the average time it takes to move through a period that my assumption is now an emergency. I cannot do no more. I've tried all that I can do. And so, and I applaud the therapeutic center, etc., etc. But with the numbers that we have proposed, or that I have indicated, 6,800, it's a small amount. It indicates that many are fighting the fight without coming, without knowing in some cases that they can come. And that if we should do the proper communications and the proper enlightening of our society, much, much more would come. I applaud the Minister Favour Williams because I saw in the newspaper that approximately 5,000 parents were being trained, or I'm not sure, 100,000 parents were being trained, 100,000. That's very important, and I applaud that because a lot of times it is the lack of knowledge of what to do. But we have in our school systems captive for 5 years teenagers that will eventually become, in the main, most parents. At that level, there should be an intervention of training of how to parent. And one simple thing which we're discussing now is behavior modification. Is it punishment, which is the only thing most Jamaicans know? Most Jamaicans don't know of modification through positive reinforcement. And most who are so poor don't have nothing to give or to take away with negative reinforcement. And at this time, I want to remind this parliament of a person called Doreen Dyer, who was called the Machete Mom in St. Thomas, that beat her child with a machete. That child and the mother was recently also in the newspaper with much less fanfare, where the child was graduating university. Well, it shows that the intent of that mother was not for abuse. The intent was for behavior modification, but not knowing what to do, not thinking she had no alternative. She transitioned into what was ridiculed, and people were saying, lock her up, and a lot of our parents, she needed assistance. And as you say, intervention came, but many don't get videoed. The bill made no reference of a teacher. There is a reference there of authorized person, but I'm not sure if that includes the teacher. Because the teacher sometimes interacts with the child more than the parent. And so therefore, if the teacher recognizes the need for modification, then the teacher shouldn't have to convince the parent. Because some of these parents don't care enough. Some of these parents don't bite to be true. And some of these parents don't see the truth. The people who are hustling downtown every day, selling until... My own example is that my father saw me sleeping more than he saw me awake. When he come home, I likely asleep. And then he'll take me to the bus stop in the morning. Best behavior. When we reach, different story. So the teacher should be one of those people designated. In particular, the form teachers are greatly underutilized, what do they call that? Resource in behavior modification. It is one of the best relationships that can be formed. One teacher to 40 every morning. Interfacing, interacting. And if they were properly trained into these strategies of social work, because most times it's the youngest teacher just take it up and there's no additional remuneration and there's no additional training. But if we train them and make them work with the guidance counselors, these form teachers can be an excellent resource in identification, but also in intervention for modification. And that reduces the necessity of building all these things which we will not build. But to say that after school you have an intervention session and the form teacher will facilitate, maybe it's 5 or 6 out of her class. Or his class. But the majority of teachers are, in fact, the majority of principals are now women as well. Some boys' schools are going through it as we speak. But Senator Braham, if we give them a little top-up and some additional training, the relationships that they build, you know Kingston High. Some of us know Tarrant, Norman Manley High. Those children have very little relationships with adults. And to then introduce a new adult when you could keep it, I don't see this bill facilitating that form of intervention. So while as the authorized person, I would like to recommend that the teacher or the guidance counselor, some method that the school can recommend be implemented. Consistently throughout the bill, I see equipped to provide such treatment. The vast majority of entities to which it refers, we know is not equipped to provide such treatment. That is one of the reasons that I believe so strongly in boarding schools and in facilitating greater boarding facilities. Any teacher will tell you how hard they try for the 2 or 4 hours that they have a child. And then they return to the communities. The bill seems to assume that it is the home that is the real threat. The home can be the threat. But enough time the community create a greater threat. I don't think the 60,000 girls pregnant was facilitated by the majority of the mothers. Then possibly get some lick with the hope to prevent that. But when this girl have a baby, she go right back into the community. Oftentimes not having a request that the father be identified and punished. My understanding is if she don't tell who's the father, it ends there. When DNA and everything should be done to make sure that the perpetrator is captured.